You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right, hello and welcome to this week's episode of the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. How are you? I hope you are doing well. And look, as always, if you ever want to talk to my team about building out an online marketing strategy specifically for your market to help you find more motivated sellers online, then you know where to go. That's AdWordsNerds.com/strategy. AdWordsNerds.com/strategy. We will hook you up. But this week, I wanted to get a little bit theoretical with you for a moment, and I hope you're going to kind of hang in there. I'm going to make this one a relatively short one, but I'm hoping that this mental model that I'm going to give you is going to be something that you can use multiple times, not just in your marketing for motivated sellers, which you are going to be able to do, but just kind of in better at getting a grip on this weird world of ours. Because, there's a lot of things in the world that don't seem to make a whole lot of sense. A lot of things in the world that are confusing and seem to conflict with what we might expect. And I find this mental model to be useful in understanding those things, and specifically in understanding the current marketing landscape for motivated sellers. And I'm going to tie this in with where we are right now in 2021 and what's going on online and all that good stuff. Here's the basic model that I want you to understand. There's a very big difference between things that are decisions and things that are games. Okay, there's a very big difference between things that are decisions and things that are games. Okay, now here's what I mean. It is a decision to decide, for example, what you want to have for dinner tonight. Do I want to have macaroni and cheese or do I want to have fish? Do I want to have steak or do I want to have spaghetti? Right? That's a decision. You make that decision based purely on what is best for you. Well, macaroni and cheese, my favorite food, that's what I'm going to have. Or maybe I decide, hey, you know what? I'm trying to watch my calories. I'm trying to eat a little bit healthier this year. I'm going to go with the fish. Either way, it's a decision I'm making purely based on my own preferences. That is a decision. Simple enough, right? And you might say in your business, for example, well, I want to do direct mail or I want to do online advertising, wherever, right? What's best for me? What's best for my cash flow? What does my budget look like? And so on. Now, a game is different. A game is what occurs when you make your decision after taking into account the decisions of others. So, for example, let's say we're not deciding what we want to have for dinner. We are deciding what restaurant we want to go to. And let's say there's some kind of external time limit. We've only got an hour. All right, I got to be somewhere. I've only got an hour to go out to dinner. Now, that decision I'm going to make not purely based on my own preferences. I'm going to factor in my preferences, but what else do I have to think about? I have to think about how busy those restaurants are going to be at the time I need to go out. Let's say it's 6 p.m. Well, I really want to go to the Italian restaurant down the street. That's my favorite restaurant, but it's really popular. And it's Friday night at 6, which means it's going to be packed. And because everyone else is going to go there and it's going to be packed, there's going to be a wait, and I'm not going to be able to get out in an hour. So you know what? I'm going to go to the Mexican place that's on the other side of town that's less popular. That is an example of a game. Again, I'm not ignoring my own preferences, but my own preferences are not the only thing that matters, because the actions of other people change my potential outcome. and I have to take them into account. So when we move from the realm of decision-making into the realm of games, we move away from, in terms of academic disciplines, we move away from decision theory into game theory. And I personally, you probably heard about me, heard me talk about game theory or maybe reference game theory on this podcast. I'm fascinated by game theory and what game theory explains about some of the weirder ways that our world and culture tend to work things out. Now, here's where this applies to your real estate investing business. And specifically, let's tie this back into marketing and specifically where we are at in 2021 as I record this. Now, the other day I was talking to an investor, and I talk to my clients all the time. I talk to dozens of investors a week, essentially. And I was talking to this investor, and they were saying, like nationally, where are people in terms of how responsive their markets are? Because I don't know about you, but right now, when I talk to investors, the storyline, the sort of narrative that I hear a lot is, okay, inventory is really low, demand is really high. That makes this a really aggressive seller's market, and that's tough on investors in general. Okay, so all right, so he said, hey, what kind of happened last year? And I said, you know what? I have a sense of that, but I haven't actually pulled the data, really looked at it lately. So let me go and do that. So I went to my team and I said, hey, can you guys pull for me the conversion rate of all of our clients month over month from 2020 up till now? And conversion rate, just so you know, it's the percentage of people that land on one of our clients' websites and then call them or email them or text them or whatever. Right. So let's say, 100 people landed on my website. I got 10 leads. My conversion rate would be 10%. All right. So I said, hey, give me the conversion rate of all of our clients month over month from 2020 to now. And they pulled it out and I was kind of blown away. Here's what happened in 2020 in real estate investing nationwide. Because by the way, AdWords Nerds, we work with hundreds of investors in pretty much every market in the United States, big and small. We are all over the place. And so we have a pretty wide ranging data set on what investors are doing and what's working and who's closing, yada, 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 right? I said, give me the conversion rate. Here's what I saw. In January of 2020, so pre-coronavirus, January of 2020, the average national conversion rate was around 6%. And that's pretty much what I tell people on most calls. I say, nationally, investor type websites, you think of just the average website that you see for a real estate investor, form at the top, we buy houses, yada, yada. That's around a 5 to 6% conversion rate. That's been relatively stable for a really long time. And in January 2020, that's where we were, 6%. At the end of 2020, so December of 2020, 1 year later, nationally, on average, we were at 1.5% conversion rate. We started at 6% as an industry, and we ended at 1.5%. That was the impact of COVID-19, coronavirus, the quarantines, the lockdowns, various changes in, governmental leadership, policies, eviction bans, foreclosure bans, etc. That is a massive drop-off. And in many ways, that had been hidden from me because part of why people come to work with us at AdWords Nerds is they want someone to handle that kind of stuff. And so we are constantly mitigating those factors. We change our strategies, we adapt, we test new landing pages, yada, yada, yada. Like we're always changing things up. And so in many ways, our clientele was like kind of doing better than the national average. And so I kind of didn't realize what was happening, but that is a massive drop. And that basically continued January and February of 2021. Very low conversion rate.
Want to find motivated seller leads online, but don't know where to start? Download our free Motivated Seller Keyword Report today. AdWords Nerds have spent over $5 million this year researching the most profitable keywords for finding motivated seller leads. And you can grab these exact keywords when you download our report at www.adwordsnerds.com/keywords.
Now let's bring this to game theory, okay? Let's imagine just you. Let's say you are an investor. Of course, you probably are if you listen to this podcast. You're an investor. Let's say you use Facebook ads, Google ads, Bing ads, whatever, or even direct mail. In fact, let's do direct mail because I feel like it's easier to understand. You use direct mail as a real estate investor to find off-market deals. Okay? Pretty common business model. Now, over the course of 2020, what happened? The response rates of pretty much every type of marketing dropped. Why? Well, people didn't want to sell their house because they didn't want people to come over. People weren't sure what's going to happen to the housing market, right? And companies like Zillow and Trulia stopped making as many offers. A whole variety of reasons. There was an eviction ban, foreclosure ban, so people were under less pressure to move out or sell. For a variety of reasons, people are holding on to their properties and not selling. The response rates to real estate investor marketing went down over 2020. I think that's pretty safe. It's not true for everybody. Of course, we're talking about averages, but as a national average, it's a pretty safe assessment. Now, when that happens, let's say you as this real estate investor, you primarily use direct mail to get your leads, get your deals. You still got to eat. You still got to make your living, right? You got to pay your mortgage. So what do? Well, for most investors, there was a period at the beginning of the pandemic where people held on to their marketing money because they weren't sure what was happening. But when people realized that, the world wasn't ending, they put their money back into the market, but now they were behind. Response rates were low. They'd missed part of the year. And so if that were you, what would you do? Well, for most investors, what they did was they spent on marketing more aggressively. Maybe you bought a bigger list. Maybe you mailed that list more often. Maybe you invested in some fancier mailers. Most people invested more heavily because they needed to make up the difference. In economics, we call this the marginal utility. The marginal utility of every single deal in the market was higher because there were less of those deals to go around. If supply is low and demand is high, what does Econ 101 tell us is going to happen? Costs go up. So you invest more heavily in your direct mail. And that's great. It's totally rational decision to make. But remember, this isn't a decision. It's a game. And so if you made that decision, what was everybody else's decision in that same instance? Well, it was to do exactly the same thing. They needed to pay their mortgage. They needed to pay their bills. The marginal utility of every deal was higher for them too. And so your competitors also spent more heavily on marketing in order to make up the difference. And so now, if you're a seller in this aggressive seller's market, not only are you less inclined to sell to an investor overall, but now you are being marketed to more heavily than before. Meaning that instead of 3 postcards a week, you're getting 10. Meaning that instead of seeing 4 ads online, you're seeing 20. Every single marketing channel saw this dynamic over 2020 and the beginning of 2021. Inventory is down, supply is high, and in a game, that means the prices that the competitors are willing to pay goes up and up and up. Really fascinating. And so what then, given the reality of this game that everyone is playing, that is resulting in less deals for everyone and higher costs for everyone, what is the rational result of this game? What does game theory, for example, say we should do? Well, at AdWords Nerds, I'll tell you what we did, because we are primarily online. So what did? We managed our bids. We managed our positions. Every single ad for every single keyword for every single client. We might say, hey, the advantage of being number 1 is not quite worth it anymore, so we're going to back off to number 3. And maybe we'll get slightly less deals overall, but the cost per deal acquisition is still going to be profitable, and we're going to let everybody else burn out. That was what we did. What everybody else did is mostly ignore it and continue to spend and continue to spend and continue to spend. Now, what ends up happening in that kind of situation is that over time, people tend to punch themselves out. And there is some inkling right now that might be starting to happen. Costs are starting to decline ever so slightly for the first time in a long time. Conversion rates are tending to come up ever so slightly for the first time in a long time. And so there's some indication that the ice is beginning to thaw. Now, do I know that for sure? No. And look, if there's anything I've learned over 2020, it's that making predictions is kind of a fool's game. Instead, what you got to do is you got to be ready for whatever happens. You got to cap your downsides. You got to invest where you think the odds are in your favor, but you got to be careful, right? And you don't want to put all your chips on any one prediction because who knows? That's what I learned in 2020. But I think more importantly than anything, it's this understanding that when you go into, for example, direct mail, online marketing, any kind of marketing, it isn't a decision. It's a game. It's a game you are playing with investors everywhere, and specifically investors in your market. And what is right for you? Should I do cold calling or online marketing? Should I do ads or SEO? Should I do direct mail or should I do, text marketing or whatever the thing is? The right decision for you, it's not simply a matter of picking the right strategy from the book of permanently right strategies, right? It's a matter of understanding that you are playing a game and understanding that the best decision for you depends a lot on what the other players in that game are up to. Look, as always, I hope you find this episode interesting. I hope you found it useful. Leave me a comment and leave me a review. I would love to hear what you think of the show. You can go to anywhere where you get podcasts and leave me a review. It helps other people find the show. I very much appreciate it. And look, as always, if you ever want our help building out an online marketing strategy for your market, AdWordsNerds.com/strategy is the place to do it. This is Daniel Barrett signing off. Have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you very soon. Cheers.
This is the podcastfactory.com.